And dear community, let us enjoy listening to three sound of the bell together as we breathe in and out to fully be there for ourselves, allowing ourselves to dwell in this present moment. This moment is here for us. Allow ourselves to be here for the moment. I listen, I listen. This wonderful sound of the bell brings me home to my true home in the here, in the now. Dear respected Thai, dear beloved community, today is July 24th in the year 2022. We are in the lower hamlet of Plum Village, and this is our second week of our summer opening. This year, Plum Village, we also is celebrating 40 years of Plum Village, 40 years of manifestation. And when we are here in Plum Village, we can be here, but we can also choose to be elsewhere. Because our mind allows us to be in many different places. Either it is to the past, where we may have some regrets, or we still have fear and worries, or our mind also takes us to the future, where it may seem that we have no clarity, a lot of uncertainty, and maybe some pain as we look into the future also. Or even by being lost in the present moment, where we can run around in our non-stop radio station. And if we allow ourselves to continue to let that habit take over, then we won't really be here in Plum Village. So the first practice of Plum Village and the manifestation of the teachings of Plum Village through our beloved teacher, Thai, he teaches us the first Dharma seal of Plum Village. And that seal is learning to be at home. I have arrived, I am home. This is a very simple phrase, but it is very profound, because the Buddha has taught us that life is only available in the very here and now. And in the here and now is where we can be in touch with ourselves, be in touch with the wonders inside of us and the wonders all around us. If we cannot arrive in the here and now, we are not truly living. We are truly not giving ourselves to taste life. And then we will live the moment of the past. And we have the tendency to say, if only I had more time. If only I can go back and do better. But if we arrive right here, right now, where this moment is precious, this moment is here, and you breathe in and you connect your mind home to your body, and you breathe out, you know you are here for yourself. This very moment is the gift that no one can take away from you. And in this moment, you can live to make it a beautiful past, as well as the moment of the present. It is building the future. This is the teachings of the 3 times: the past, the present, and the future, where our mind likes to wander and explore. But do you know that you can explore the past in the very here and now, as well as take care of the future in the very here and now? But to do this, we need to explore our seed of mindfulness. All of us, we have a seed of mindfulness. Seed of mindfulness is one of the characteristics of the Buddha. The word Buddha, it means an awakened being, an awakened person. It is a title that the Buddha's student gave to him. But you know that the Buddha was just like us. He was a human being that was very curious and experienced himself suffering inside of him and around him. And he asked himself, if this is suffering, there must be a way out of suffering. And because of this curiosity and this deep wish to help himself as well as to help others, the Buddha went on a journey, a spiritual journey. Like this, he also looked for a retreat center. He looked for a teacher. He looked for those who can guide him inwards. And I'm sharing this to us because all of us, we have Buddha nature in us. We have awakened, the seed of awakening in us. The children, whenever I see them, you know, just by them being in Plum Village, their seed of awakening is being touched without them even knowing. Because they get to see and they get to feel the stillness, the calmness, the presence of adults who are breathing in mindfully together, generating an energy of presence. And in that energy, there are elements of compassion, there are elements of love, there are elements of connection. And this energy penetrates the mind, the consciousness of all of us, and especially the young ones. So when we come to a practice center and come to a retreat, it is to identify our energy of mindfulness and to make it alive. Buddhism is a teaching to be put into daily life. It is part of our teacher's exploration, bringing the teachings of the Buddha 2,600 years ago into the modern world and making the teachings alive. So how can we identify our seeds of mindfulness? Mindfulness is the capacity to be aware. We are breathing, but most of the time we forget that we are breathing. And do you know that the breath is an indicator of how we are doing? When we are angry, our breath is very different. When we are anxious, our breath is very different. When we are peaceful, when we are present, our breath can be deeper. Our breath can be calmer. So learning to just identify the simple practice of this is in-breath, this is out-breath, already we have mindfulness. We are aware that we are breathing. And once we are aware that we are breathing, we have a place to take refuge in. And we need this refuge because if we don't take refuge in the breath, our habit energy will take us once again to the past or to the future or to our thinking in the present. So the breath becomes our anchor. It allows us to solidify our presence. And so the first practice is just learning to identify this is in-breath and this is out-breath. And once you identify this is in-breath, this is out-breath, you want to stay with it a little longer because you want to develop your mindfulness. Mindfulness is an energy that is very organic. If you don't invest in it, it will go away. And in the second development of the practice of mindfulness is we want to develop our concentration. We want to develop our presence. This is now more needed than ever. Our society, our culture is a culture of doing and running, multitasking, fast pace, action, action, action. And by drowning ourselves in this culture and in this way of being, we have also experienced so much stress, anxiety, and being overwhelmed. And we are always running towards something. Maybe we don't even know what we are running to. But because it is such a strong habit that we feel if we are not running towards something, we are not doing anything. We are not accomplishing anything. So our tendency is not to be here. Our tendency is to run. And this habit is not only ours. It can be the habit of our ancestors also. Habits of our father, our mother. Habits of our society. So in this moment, when we develop our concentration, we are learning to stop. We are learning to calm ourselves and to touch the inner peace that is present. And this inner peace allows us to feel more alive, to feel more in the here, in the now. And we can feel our body when we are here. Where is the tension? Where is the stress? Your body is another friend that is always telling you, SOS, SOS, take care of me, which is take care of you. Learn to sit and do nothing. Learn to sit and just breathe and relax your shoulders. Relax your forehead. Relax your jaw. the tensions in your fingers. Relax your body. You need this. We need to learn to rest. Resting, it may seem like a beautiful and wonderful privilege. And maybe we see, who am I to rest when the world is burning and there is so much suffering? But how can you contribute? And how can you offer if you cannot be there for yourself? If it is what you are trying to offer, which is peace and sustainability, are we sustainable to ourselves? Are we taking care of ourselves? Are we aware of our feelings, our emotions? Are we aware that we have pain in our bodies and we have places in our hearts that we are afraid to touch? Do we know that it is us that we have to come inwards for transformation to be possible? So resting is learning to be still. And to be still, we need some concentration. We have to develop our stillness. Stillness is also an art because it allows us to have a presence. When you love someone, we want to offer them the most beautiful things in the world because we see them as us. And we only want to offer the most beautiful things to those that are so deeply connected to us. We look for flowers, we look for presents, or we offer them a retreat. But do we offer ourselves a retreat? Do we offer ourselves the presence so that we can be there for those that we love? Our definition of love in Buddhism is to be there, first of all. If you love someone, the best thing to give them is your presence. When we first fall in love, just seeing him, her, or they, we feel so full. We don't need to eat. Everything is okay. And that love is beautiful. It's very precious. But because we don't know how to take care of the love, that love's transformed. And it turns into hate, anger, jealousy, greed. And then that love becomes unbearable. And then we cannot be present anymore because we don't feel that it is nourishing anymore. And it's because we don't have the capacity to be present anymore. Because for us in love, is we don't only learn to accept their beauty, but we also learn to accept their suffering. Because suffering is a part of life. This is the first noble truth in Buddhism. Suffering. We may ask, what is so noble about suffering if it is so bitter and so painful? Suffering makes us feel connected because we all suffer. It is a condition that none of us can escape. But if we learn to identify suffering, recognize suffering, and accept the suffering, we will learn to suffer less because we will learn to see the roots of our suffering. If the first noble truth is knowing that there is suffering, the second noble truth is there is causes and conditions that creates our suffering. And this, we need concentration. We need time. We need to learn to be still. If we don't be still and be us, we won't ever have a chance to truly look and see the causes of our suffering. When we look at our suffering, this is meditation. The first wing of meditation, learning to stop, learning to be still, having the capacity to be in the here and the now. And once the water is still, it becomes a mirror. And the mirror has an opportunity to reflect inside and outside. And we start to see the causes, the roots, the ingredients of our suffering. And we say, aha, this is why I suffer. And this comes to our third noble truth, the cessation of suffering. Because once we identify it, we know we can put an end to it. This may become an aspiration, become a will, an action to change. But all of this is still on the level of thinking, which now leads to the fourth noble truth. It is the path out of suffering. Or sometimes our teacher, he calls it the path leading to well-being, which is the other opposite of suffering, well-being. And this takes courage. Because if we see the path that leads to well-being, it may make us change our habits, change our way of life, change the way we consume things, whether it is edible or through our senses, our eyes, our ears, our conversations, our environment, who we associate with. All of these external conditions have an impact in our inner world and outer world, as well as looking at the landscape of our consciousness. What is it that is always manifesting in my mind? Identify it, call it by its true name, and seeing why does these thoughts always manifest. And if we want to transform it, we start to see that our way of being needs a change, needs a transformation. And this is why the path is very important. It is the action that can allow us to have a deep transformation. And when I say transformation, some transformation can happen immediately, but some transformation takes time. There's a process. Mindfulness is always mindfulness of something. Concentration is always concentration of something. When we are here in Plum Village in this 1 week that we have, it's very precious, huh? You may seem that it is long, 7 days. It can be long, but it will go by like this also. In the week that we are here, look at our daily habits and see which one we want to make it into a mindful action. start to be selective in your development of mindfulness. The breathing is very practical, universal, and you can bring it everywhere with you. So the first wish that we have is for all of us to become a true friend with our breath, so that that breathing can stay with us, as well as we can learn to take refuge in the breath. Even in an uncomfortable situation, and we are stuck there, we may feel overwhelmed, confused, lost. This is the moment when you take refuge in your in-breath and out-breath. And you don't lose yourself. You identify what is happening in the here and now. And you know how to be and embrace the feelings and the emotions that are coming up. You know that all of our feelings and emotions are like energies. They can be very overwhelming, and they help us do things that we may regret. Either it is in the form of our words, what we say, or our bodily action. And it's because of these energies that manifest that makes us perform such action. And it's because we are unaware that these emotions are there, and we are allowing these energies to push us. So the first practice is identifying, hello, my anger, I know you are there. Smile to your anger. Know that it is present. Embrace the anger. Soothe the anger with your breathing. Tell your little anger, I'm going to take care of you. We're not going to say anything. We're not going to do anything, because we have past experience of our suffering. That if I say something with this energy, I'm going to regret it. And this is when suffering becomes insight. Because we have suffered, we know what will happen if we do, say, and act in such a way. So suffering becomes a teacher for us. And this is why suffering is also very noble. It tells us of what to do and what not to do, because we have awareness of the suffering. We learn to become a gardener. Suffering is like one of a manifestation in our garden. And we learn to see it as it is and trim it when it needs to be trimmed. So the breath becomes a friend of ours that we can always come back and it can be a refuge for us. This island, there's an island inside all of us. It's our teacher. This island of practice. And when we start to practice, we are developing this island. And as we invest in this island, this can be a refuge, a life jacket for us. In any situation, as I breathe in, I have arrived in my body. As I breathe out, I allow myself to be at home in my body. I have arrived. I am at home. listening to the bell together is very delicious. It gives us all an opportunity to learn to just be with the breath. This is one of the habits that we have all gained in Plum Village. It becomes automatic. Whenever you hear the bell, you just stop, no matter where you are. And you know, in daily life, we have so many activities. Opening the door is an activity. How do you open the door? The way you open the door can be a very mindful act. That can be where you want to focus, just how I open the door and how I close the door. Am I doing it with just one hand? Oh, whatever, dude, and just get on with life? Or do I see, wow, I'm entering into a place, maybe the meditation hall, a place of practice. Before I come in, I already want to arrive into my body. I want to open it with mindfulness, aware of the opening, entering into the zone of practice, and closing. Every action is an opportunity. And this is when we learn to take advantage of the present moment so that it becomes an action of presence. When we walk, this is an opportunity of deep practice, learning to make steps of solidity, changing our habit of rushing, of always being agitated, developing the concentration in our steps. You know that each step we take is an imprint on this earth. It is a part of us that we are giving back. And we're always giving back so much energy to this precious planet. And the earth is a bodhisattva. The earth doesn't discriminate. It accepts all. From the most purest fragrance to the most dirtiest things we offer back. The earth embraces all. And so, you know, our steps is also a contribution. The steps that we take can help us reconnect to the environment, reconnect to this beauty that is here, that we are protecting. Our teacher once said, it is because we've forgotten how to fall in love with Mother Earth that we are destroying Mother Earth. But if we all learn to love Mother Earth again, we will care for it like we care for ourselves. Because we see the environment is outside of us. We think that it has nothing to do with us. But in the practice of mindfulness, awareness, and looking deeply, we see very clearly that we are part of the environment. The environment is in here also. So by learning to take steps of solidity, of presence, we learn to recommunicate to this precious planet. And our actions become more mindful, more aware of how we consume, what we take, and how we offer. And when we have the insight of consumption, we start to have moderation. And we see that we have more than enough to be happy. We have more than enough to keep us here and our children and our future generation. And what we need to do is not only change the situation now, but we need to create a culture of transformation and healing. It's not a one-time thing. the crisis that we are in. We just experienced an immense heat wave. And we know that this is not normal. And all of us are interrelated to this. And when we look at the suffering with these eyes, we look at it and to see in this moment, what can I do? What can I offer to contribute to the transformation and healing? We want to create a culture of healing, of stopping, of you have enough. I used to work in the bookshop in Upper Hamlet, and our teacher used to do a lot of these calligraphies. And I put the calligraphy, you have enough there. And a businessman came by the bookshop and he said, brother, I know you're a monk and you're a practitioner, but this is very bad for business. He said, if you put this up here, nobody will want to buy from Plum Village, because then they will see they have enough. But it is, the reality is that we do have more than enough conditions to be happy. And by coming home to the present moment, we learn to identify our habits. Habits of wanting, of grasping. But you know what? You are enough. We are who we have to be. And in this present moment, when we are in touch with us, we get to be in touch with the past and the present. And we get to touch impermanence, the changes that are always manifesting. And we don't become attached to even ourselves, even our insight that we can gain. We don't even become attached to that. Mindfulness, concentration, insight, the three teachings. It is not here. But in Upper Hamlet, there's a logo, Smrti, Samadhi, Prajna. These are the three elements that you can find in every Buddhist tradition. And all of our practice helps us develop these three elements: mindfulness, concentration, and insight. And insight is not something very far away. We may think that we have to practice 20 years, 30 years to have big insight. But you know that to have a big awakening, you need little awakenings. You need little, small insights. When we breathe and we're in touch with life, we know we are alive. And in this very moment, everything is possible. That is insight. You can smile to life. Waking up this morning, 24 brand new hours are before me. That is insight. You know, life comes and goes very unexpectedly. And if while we are healthy, we are well, we have many conditions that are here, and we don't know how to be with it and enjoy it and learn to develop ourselves, to not take things for granted, then when we are at our deathbed, we will only be overwhelmed with regret. But it is by learning to live deeply this moment, when the moment of physical pain comes, you can learn to take care of the pain inside of us. The pain is present because it is part of our teachings on the 5 remembrance. The first teaching, I am of the nature to grow old. I cannot escape growing old. with this insight, we are in touch with the here and now. And we want to live deeply this moment so that even when we are elder, we can enjoy, embrace, and live with wisdom when we are older. I am of the nature to get sick. I cannot escape getting sick. This is the human experience. It is a suffering that we all have to encounter. Learning to embrace the pain is part of the practice also. Even in a difficult situation, in the pain, we can still see the beauty in life. I'll come back to this because I have experience of being Thai's attendant. The third teachings. I am of the nature to die. I cannot escape death. This is also part of all of our experience. When we are born, it's a wonder. But when we pass on, when we continue, that is another wonder. That is an experience that we all will have to be in touch with. The fourth one, everything that I cherish today, one day I will also have to learn to let go. Even the most precious person to you, one day they will also have to go, because we're all of the nature of impermanence. The fifth is that our only belonging, our continuation, they are our action, our legacy of what our thoughts, our speech, and our action. It can be remembered from generations to generations. You know that every act that you are performing, it is a transmission. Transmission to your children, transmission to your friends, your family, your community. They are your continuation. The Buddha's continuation body continues 2,600 years still today. It is not through his physical form, but through his teachings, through his example, his kind acts. Do not underestimate an act of kindness. To you, it may seem very small, but for some, it may be the moment of change, a moment of awakening. So this insight, the 5 remembrance, it carries the teachings of impermanence. And here, impermanence is not to scare us, not to give us fear, but it's to give us insight that this moment is a precious moment. And I want to live it very deeply, so that it can become a path that can be healing. A new path that you are drawing is right here, right now. The art of happiness is also very important. We spoke about ill-being, suffering, but the other is taking care of our happiness. It's as important as taking care of our suffering. Happiness is also an energy. We also know that if we have happiness today, it can also die out tomorrow. So the way we live, the way we cultivate our daily life has a contribution to our happiness, our joy. And we know that happiness doesn't belong in the future. It can be touched in the very here and now. if we just identify of all the conditions that we have while we are alive, we have good eyes that still allows us to see the wonders of life. We have two legs that allows us to walk, to tread this beautiful path. We can say words that offer hope, love, confidence. Every action is a contribution to our suffering or our happiness. And do you know, if you take care of your happiness, you are also transforming your suffering at the same time. Sometimes it's indirectly being transformed just by taking care of our happiness. Because it tells the little child within us that we are different from the past. We have new awareness, new insight. And in this moment, I want to hold that little child that is wounded from the past and let it experience the new me today, the new conditions, the love that I have in me through my understanding, through my meditation of suffering. Suffering is a teacher that helps us connect also. When I see those who suffer, my compassion is born. And I aspire to do something to contribute differently to them, to me, to my community. Tai once told us, I would never want to send my student, my children, to a place where there is no suffering. Because in that place, my students, my children will never have a chance to grow. They will not have a chance to learn and to develop. And so our idea in Buddhism of the Pure Land, or in Christianity, the kingdom of God, is not a place where there is no suffering, but it's a place where we know how to suffer. We know how to embrace suffering, take care of suffering, and transform suffering. And we don't suppress it. But we also know our limits. You know, when I first was ordained, we were also taught this, and our mentor told us, but know your capacity of how much suffering you can handle. Don't try to take care of it all right here, right now. I have mindfulness. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to be enlightened. It doesn't work like that. Everything needs a process. Everything needs time. Sometimes our mentor would say, just know that suffering is there. Smile to it. Put it in the basement. Take care of your happiness. Take care of your well-being so that you have more presence, more capacity of understanding to dissect and to look deeply. Because some suffering, it also needs time of our maturity to transform. Our understanding also needs time for it to grow. You know, I had the deepest privilege of being Thai's personal attendant. And I had the chance to make tea for him, to follow him on tours, and be with him as he led retreats and teach around the world. And if you were to ask me what was it that I took away from being with Thai, is his true presence. He knew how to be in the here and now. He knew how to not worry about the Dharma Talk. He knew how to take care of his emotions and his feelings through the practices that he offered to us. You may think that as monastic we get more special training or some secret teachings of Thai. Thai has opened his insight to all of us. But it is up to each of us of putting it into our own practice. I have a perfectionist seed in me. So when I was Thai's attendant, I wanted to be perfect, whatever that meant. But I wanted to make sure that everything he needs are always provided. And the first task that we are trained is how to make tea. It may seem very simple, but when the Zen master watches you, your nervousness really kicks in and you get super agitated. This is a new technology. How do you do this? So we always learn to pour water with two hands. Everything we do, two hands. Two hands make you more focused. It gives yourself more attention. And my first time, I poured the hot water in, and I was about to make tea for Thai, and Thai said, "Wait. Let the tea do sitting meditation." Everything that does sitting meditation tastes better. That's what Thai told me. And he said, you know, when you want to do something, learn to be still first and then do it. You will have more clarity. Your intentions will be more pure. You even pour the tea on the glass so it doesn't make sound. That's how we're trained. So every action has intention, and it develops our concentration. And when you make tea and you offer with two hands. And Thai always received with two hands. And he would cup it like this. And before he drinks it, you learn to be present for the tea. It's not just a means for you to not be thirsty, but the water has come from deep in the earth all the way here. The tea leaves may come from very far away in high mountains for it to be present. So you want to smell the fragrance, be present, and then enjoy. One time, Thai had a guest, and it was a sister coming from far away, from a different center. And I knew that she was suffering, and Thai wanted to take time to be with her. And Thai invited her for tea, and as an attendant, I have to make tea. But that day, Thai said, let Thai do it. And in my mind, why? Why something so simple like this that Thai doesn't allow me to do? And in my mind, maybe it's my last day of being Thai's attendant. Because maybe I have done something that is not so skillful. And Thai made a cup of tea for himself. And then as he was passing the cup of tea, Thai spilled over the cup of tea. So I run to the kitchen in the hut, and I get a towel. And Thai said, let me clean it. And in my mind, wow, Thai, you won't even let me do something as simple as that. And Thai started to clean, and I just sat there in my thinking, in my thoughts, not so present, over anxious. And as Thai was cleaning the puddle of tea, Thai started to share to us. Thai said that all of us are allowed to make mistakes in our life. When we become a monk or a nun or a practitioner, it doesn't mean we are perfect. And it doesn't mean we're not allowed to have shortcomings and have suffering. But each mistake is an opportunity for us to learn from it. And it's like Thai spilled a cup of tea. It is Thai's action. And Brother Phap Huu can give me the towel, bring the towel, and he can clean it. But because it is Thai's action, Thai wants to clean it. Thai has offered you many towels. And it is your mistake, your suffering. You have to learn to take care of it. Stand up from your mistake and continue onwards. Don't be so attached to that mistake that you cannot move forward. So in that moment, I realized Thai orchestrated everything. And he wanted to make the tea ceremony a moment of teaching. And in my mind, I was like, wow, I just experienced a Zen moment. And at the same time, I'm like, oh my God, thank you. And Thai said this one line that's very important. Thai will always offer you teachings and practices, but Thai can't do it for you. Thai can't breathe for you. Thai can't walk for you. But it is you that have to make the transformation possible through your own practice. But Thai will always be there to support you and to guide you. So each moment that I got to experience was very deep like that. Because I was with him, many people think me and Thai, we talk a lot, but we don't. We just drink tea. Drink tea and have moments of stillness. In Thai's hut, he has a very beautiful view. He calls it his TV screen. He said, come, let's watch the TV today. And he knows how to make the present moment a wonderful moment. And this is an art, to know how to live deeply in the moment. Because when sickness comes, you can also learn to see your new condition as another opportunity. You know, Thai had a stroke in 2014, and none of us, we expected it. And it changed the whole way of life for Thai. Thai became paralyzed on the right side. And suddenly, Thai had to learn to be helped. At first, it was very difficult for Thai to receive the support from us, because Thai has always been very independent. He was a peace activist throughout his youth. So everything, he was very capable. So suddenly, life changed very differently for Thai. And we were able to get Thai a lot of support, a lot of help. And we got many therapists to work on the speech, to work on the movement, to bring back as much mobility as possible. And I'll never forget, because Thai was in a deep coma after the stroke. But you know, even in the deep coma, Thai was breathing mindfully. The nurses couldn't understand why Thai's oxygen level was so good. 96, 97, 98. And they asked us, how is this possible? Someone 88 years old had a stroke, shouldn't be as good of breathing like this. And we all laughed. And we said, this is the best breather in the world. And you know, in that moment, the practice was automatic. Thai's breathing took in. And Thai was still so present. It was a very strange experience we had. Even though Thai was in a coma, Thai was still so present. And after the fourth night, we saw a lot of eye movement. And I told the attendants, Thai's gonna open his eyes tonight. And exactly around 2 or 3 a.m., Thai was on his right side, and Thai opened his eyes. And we were so excited. I knelt down. I said, Thai, it's us. Do you see us? We are here for you. We are here for you. And with Thai's left hand, very gently, he put on my head. And then he closed his eyes again and went back into a coma, went back into rest. And we had so many unique moments of presence. And when Thai was able to come out, when Thai learned to sit again, every moment was so precious. And you know, the first thing Thai wanted to do, drink tea. Thai point to the cup of tea, and I will never forget when he drank, this time with one hand. And Thai pointed to us, drink tea with Thai. And each moment, Thai was adapting, even in the current situation of pain. Thai, because Thai knows the present moment is where life is. And Thai had to accept the present moment also. And there was a very beautiful moment as we were learning to get back mobility. And sometimes there was a lot of pain. It was very tense. And you know, Thai's right hand is where he did all of these beautiful calligraphies. All the books that you have read, the right hand. The poems you have read, the right hand, except for one on a typewriter. And that day, even in the pain, Thai was able to send it compassion and love. I will never forget this. I was standing behind Thai. Thai was seated on the wheelchair. And he looked at his hand, and he started to use mindfulness, presence, and offer his love, compassion, and gratitude. And he looked at his hand. He smiled to it. And then he did this. It was when I cried. He went, so even in pain, even in physical pain, if you have the awareness of the present moment and of impermanence and of gratitude, these moments can become very precious. And instead of beating yourself, why can't it be like that again? Then you're attached to the past. So we have to learn. Our art is living in the present moment, taking care of the present moment. And we have to do this now, while we are healthy, while we are well. We have our loved ones there, our family is here. Live deeply these moments. So when that moment arrives, you can do that. You can embrace the pain in you with love, compassion, and presence. And you know, in the last days before Tai continued, moved on, we have some of our sisters that were his long-term attendant are back with us. And I asked her, how was Tai in the last days? She said Tai was very present. Tai looked at all of his students with eyes of compassion and of eyes of gratitude, eyes of continuation, because Tai already sees himself in us. And when I say us, all of you too. We are part of his continuation, his legacy. So our practice is what he has offered to us, and is what I don't take for granted, and what I still continue to invest in. No matter how long of a practitioner we are, these practices are universal, and it takes us from the moment, from now to the future. And when you live deeply, there is nothing to regret. When it's time to say goodbye, you can say goodbye and release. And it's because I had the chance to observe and be with someone who was able to live so deeply. I can see it is possible. Because Tai and like the Buddha was also very human. And if they are human and we are human, we can do it. We can practice. We can have moments of peace, healing, and transformation. And this will be our legacy that we offer to our descendants, to the future, to this earth. Dear friends, you have arrived. You are home in the present moment. Allow yourself to live deeply these days so that it can be a wonderful past. When that moment comes, you can look back and you will say, oh, those moments I had were very deep. Because each moment that we live and we are mindful of, they become a source of energy. And whatever kind of energy is up to us. We are the artists once you have mindfulness, concentration, and the insight. Let the art manifest through your breath, your steps, your eyes, your smile, your speech. Even just your presence is an offering. Nothing is lost. That's what I have learned. Thank you, dear friends. Let us listen to 3 sound of the bell to end our session together.